Just so you guys know, we do lives every Wednesday and Saturday. It's 7:30 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to join us for a live and hang out, Wednesdays and Saturdays at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. Hopefully we see you there. Bang! Neeves Knives. I'm Jared. My lovely wife Kara's out walking with her nephew. And today we are going to talk about what the best knives are to mod. Now, I actually have a new mod coming up myself. I actually have a couple mods coming up myself. One I'm going to videotape, and that is going to be on this Spyderco Gale Bradley. Now, that is thankful to Slicey Dicey. Slicey Dicey sent me some really awesome micarta scales from Sharp Dress Knives. He had them laying around, and he asked me if I wanted them. I said, yeah. What do you want for them? He says, I don't want nothing. He's that awesome, so I appreciate him sending me these. That is really cool. Thank you, Slicey Dicey. That's amazing, because I do want to replace these scales. That's one of my biggest peeves on this, and I love this knife. Or actually, it's my second biggest peeve is the scales. My first one, I'm going to also mod. So what I'm going to do is when I remove this scale, let me take these out. When I remove the scale, the liner is the most difficult thing to get to. So first I'm going to do a quick review on it, and then I'm going to film a video of knife modding it. So now these new micarta scales are amazing. They're very, very sharp. You can tell they're going to turn a really nice color once the oils from my fingers start really getting in there. And then it will look like this. It is going to look fantastic. Now, the biggest problem I have with this knife is this liner. So the liner is not easy to get to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut back the metal right here. I'm not going to cut back anything on the micarta. So wherever the micarta lands basically is where I'm going to cut back to. And then I think that'll be plenty of room to actually access the liner. It's just one of my pet peeves personally. Now, you might have this and say that it doesn't bother you at all, and that's cool. But to me, I have a pet peeve with access to lock bars. So that is going to be an awesome video, and hopefully you guys will join me for that video. Next up, let's talk about other great knives to mod. So the first question you want to ask yourself is, what kind of mods are you wanting to do? Are you wanting to just buy parts? And I know everything looks crooked here, because it probably is. There we go. Whatever. Anyways, so if you're just looking for knives to buy parts for, like you don't want to actually put any work, like I don't mean like that in a bad way, but you don't want to have to cut into anything or anything like that. You just want to unscrew it and screw it on. Then the best place to start is Spyderco's, Benchmade, stuff like that. You know, there's a lot more. So this is a very broad term, because what you need to do is you need to either, one, if you already have the knife, just look it up. See if there's aftermarket parts. Like this one, this is some micarta scales that somebody sent me to put on the Shaman. Now, the Shaman, you can get lots of aftermarket parts for. So I can get aftermarket screws for, but it already has the black screws I want. Now you see my pivot screw, it's getting old and it's looking bad. So what I could do is I could buy just that replacement pivot screw, or just buy the entire set, and it's not even going to be that much money. And then they can be titanium. They might look a little bit better. I could put a new clip on it and take it a little step further. You know, stuff like that. But you could also, if there's a knife that you want to do, you can, not that you want to do, you can look up parts, right? So go and look up aftermarket parts, and you can go through their webpage and see what knives they have a lot of parts for, and then decide what knife you want to get based on their parts. So then you can seek out that knife and buy the parts for. Like knives like this, Benchmade just recently put this in their custom shop, where they'll custom do it for you. Now you can possibly just buy the parts yourself and do it all yourself very easily, or I don't know about easily, but you can do it yourself, and yeah, and probably do it a lot cheaper. So depending on what you want to do, like they have lots of titanium scales for these. You can get anodized titanium scales. You can get, this one's G10. I bought these aftermarket. I got these from Flytanium. So these are Flytanium G10 scales. Now that was before they offered it in the custom shop. I probably still would have did it myself. It costed me an extra 30 bucks. And then plus the time and the work. But even these rats, you see this one's a modded version of the rat. Sorry if I'm not naming, yeah, I think I'm naming these. So this is the rat one, and this is a modded version of the rat one done by BJ Hill. But now they have titanium scales, brass scales, all different kinds of scales you can get for these. You can get hardware, all kinds of stuff. So if you just want a titanium rat, you can have it. So there's lots of parts. They're already pre-made for lots of different knives. These Benchmade Griptilians, they have everything you could imagine to get for these. And I'm thinking about getting me some, either one, some contoured micarta scales, or two, what I really want, I want to find some titanium scales. Just some raw titanium. Whew, that would be sweet. I definitely want to do that. I'd like to get the rounded ones like this. I did see some that were like squared off. Anyways, now, maybe you're not wanting to buy the parts. You want to do it yourself. So in that, like doing that, I think you got to figure out what you're wanting to do or the knife you're wanting to do it on. Now, I think you should practice first. So the best knives to practice on are Ganzos. Ganzos are awesome to practice mods on. You can practice drilling into the blades. You can practice even sharpening. If you want to learn how to freehand sharpen, Ganzos are awesome. You can get them for like 20 bucks. They have decent steel and they sharpen up good. Rather than getting a gas station knife and learning, don't do that. Do not do that. Do not learn how to freehand on a gas station knife. You will be in a world of horror. Those are horrible to sharpen. Their heat treat on the blades, it's just so soft, or maybe it doesn't even have one. I don't know. But I've tried it multiple times and it's never a good scene. Never ever. So, but also, like, say if you're wanting to maybe put in a spidey hole, right? You're wanting a knife and you want to put in your own spidey hole on a specific knife. So there's lots of knives that are fun to do that on and that are good on. But one thing you want to make sure is one, you have enough room to do the hole. So like, I'm going to be doing a Kaiser sheepdog. I sent the big one, the one with the micarta handles. If you didn't see my video, I just recently got the micarta sheepdog. I just sent it out for somebody to check out, but I'm going to be putting a hole in mine, most likely. And I think that'll be really cool. I can spidey flick it, but I know two things. One, I know there's plenty of room for me to do it. And two, which is the biggest thing, the detent is perfect for me to get a spidey flick on, because you want to make sure that it's capable of being spidey flicked. You'd hate to do all that work to find out that the detent is just too strong, or that this happens. See right there how I ran into this spot? So like this one would be really good for the spidey flick, but for the thumb flick, I mean, I'm sure it'll be fine, but there's a lot of knives that you run into the issue that you hit stuff. It's in the way. Also, you got to make sure that if you're doing flipper deletes or anything like that, you want to make sure where it locks up at, like this. Going back to the Kaiser mini sheepdog. If I did a flipper delete on this, look where the flipper lands. It lands as the stop pin in the close position, because this is the stop pin. That's where it stops at. So I'd have to be very careful cutting this off, because otherwise when I go to close it, it's going to mess up. You want to make sure also back here where it stops at, make sure you don't ruin that. Or a lot of stop pins land right here where the choil is. So if you're going to cut in a sharpening choil or a finger choil, be careful, because that could be where it stops. So you want to watch out for stuff like that. Like a knife like this wouldn't be bad to put a spidey hole in. The Hooligan, one, I can easily spidey flick it with the thumb stud, so that means that would be pretty easy. Plus, it has enough room for a circle right there for a hole. And the detent's not really strong, so it works out really good. Liner locks are really good to put holes in. Sometimes frame locks are. Like I said, it depends on whether or not they're a flipper or if they are thumb stud. Usually if they're thumb stud and you have enough room to put a hole, then it should be fine. But sometimes they might be on bearings and they might have a very strong detent. So, you know, you want to be cognitive of those little details. Now, say if you're wanting to go a little bit step further and you're not really wanting to put a hole in nothing, you're wanting to do some anodizing. Now, my opinion on doing some anodizing, and I'm gonna talk about some more stuff. This was the Kaiser Rogue, and this was the mini sheepdog, the Civivi Hooligans right here. Okay, so maybe you want to do some anodizing. All right, this is the Kaiser Yorkie. This is the Kaiser Sheepdog. I think Kaisers, especially their older models, are really good to learn how to anodize on. Another one that's really good to learn on are Tucson knives. This is the Tucson TS 129. We'll talk about it in 1 second. Now, depending on what type of finish you're looking for, say if you're wanting to do a finish like this, you have to be able to polish. If you want the real vibrant colors, you have to polish the surface, or it has to come with a semi-polished surface, like kind of like this has. So this I did not polish, and it was just by torch. So this is heat anode. Now, if you're just wanting to heat anode, if you know, depending on how bright you want the colors, depends on the prep work you're going to do. So you know, Tucson's you can get for a really good price, especially some of the older ones. You know, if you're just wanting to practice anodizing and stuff, you can get them relatively cheap. They're good titanium. They're easy to take apart and put back together, and the parts fit really good, because that's another thing. If you're going to have to take them apart and put them back together a whole bunch of times and change things, you need it to fit good from the start. A lot of knives you'll take apart and you'll realize like how ridiculous it is getting it back together, or that you just can't get it centered again. You can't get the action back the way it is. Tucson's are amazing for taking down and putting them back together. They come apart real easily and they go back together very easily. It's very simple. So they also, like I said, have good titanium, and there are a lot of them come with raw titanium. Some of them with you know, like this one has the milling lines, but a lot of them come they're just flat. They're just flat titanium. So if you get those, the ones with the flat titanium, it'd be a lot easier for you to polish, stuff like that. You know, before you step up to one of your more expensive knives, you know, and you don't want to practice on something that you might regret, something that's a little bit more expensive, something that's harder to replace. Now, if you're just wanting to if you don't want the bright colors and you're just wanting the heat anode, this was the Spyderco Techno 2. This is the Zero Tolerance 0450. Now this was anodized, but you can see how dark the colors are. Now I didn't want bright colors. I wasn't looking for vibrant colors. I was looking for like kind of like a battlefield pickup. I wanted it to look nice and rough. So that didn't matter to me. The polishing part meant nothing to me. But if you're wanting vibrant colors, and if you want it to stick really good without getting scratched real easily, like look at this. This was a heat anode. See how nicked up it is? Now, if I would have polished this surface, it wouldn't be like that. It would be more like this, where it's nice and slick still. This side, you can see the same thing. It's nicked up a little bit, but this holds a lot better than this, because this was like this surface, more polished, and this is more rough. So, you know, you want to find a knife, one that you can buy for a cheap price, that has the good materials and has the good hardware that you can take apart and put back together. I'm not specifically saying you have to do those, but that's a good place to start. Now, if you're just wanting, say, to do some RIT dyeing or something like that, you can get some G10. Like a lot of knives come with this JG10, right? A lot of knives come like that, and you can just RIT dye them. This actually came like that. This is a RIT dye job. This was originally the JG10. So, and then like if you get multiples, you can just swap scales. So like I could take this micarta and put it on this S35 VN version. This is the the Civivi Elementum. This is the D2 version. This is the S35 version, but I can easily swap the scales now. And then if I want to, I can dye this or leave it the jade. Now, same thing with this CJRB feldspar, mini feldspar. I can dye this whatever color I want. And then I still have the bronze collar. It'll look really good. And then I can etch the blade if I want, you know, kind of like this one. I can etch it. And I could bronze the hardware by torching them a little bit, get a little bit of a bronzish color. I could do the same thing with the clip. Like, there's lots of things I could do with this. Now, a Spidey hole, it might work, but I wouldn't recommend it too much. I mean, I don't know. I guess it, you know what, it might actually work pretty decent. It might not look good, though, because it'd be a pretty big hole. But it probably would work good. I don't know. I didn't think about it before I started this, really. I think it might work. But, you know, those are the things you can test out on knives like these. These are like $30 knives. This is the QSP Penguin. And Great Micarta. You know, this one would be good for maybe a Spidey hole. Yeah, a Spidey hole would go good on this. Or not. Don't even do that, and just etch the blade, maybe stonewash it, maybe bronze the liners and the hardware, you know, stuff like that. So depending on what type of mod you want to do, start off small, you know, on cheaper knives like these that work really good that you can put back together. Because remember, a lot of knives, once you start changing stuff, they don't go back together as easy. Especially when you start torching them and you start expanding the materials. You got to make sure everything that you're messing with, you got to make sure you put nail polish on so you don't get the pivots, the D10 holes. You got to make sure you mask all that off so that it all fits back together properly. But knives like these are great to start modding. They and like I said, if you don't, this is one of the knives I didn't pick up. This is the Kaiser V3 Vigor. I don't know why I pulled it out. Oh, I was going to talk about dyeing G10. So like, see how this has a pattern? Even though this is green, I could still dye this and then it would still have a pattern. Now, a lot of people have dyed these honey badgers. These honey badgers come in 3 different sizes, and a lot of people like to mod them. They, for some reason, for darker colors, it'll cover this this light green, or if you get the brown or the tan FRN, it takes the RIT dye pretty good. A lot of FRN does not, though, so don't think that FRN is just going to take RIT dye. You have to leave it in a lot longer. You want to make sure you're doing a darker color on top of a lighter color, stuff like that. But like, there's also just like the small mods, like I did on this. This is the Giant Mouse Ace Biblio. I just did a flipper delete, but now I like it so much more because I got the ergos that I wanted on there. Even though the flipper tab worked good on it, I knew the Spidey hole worked just fine. So it wasn't that big of a deal for me to have the flipper tab right here getting in the way from my finger, because this notch wasn't really big enough for my finger. Now, I could have just made the sharpening choil bigger, right? And put my finger right there and then left the flipper tab, but I didn't want to do that. I liked the sharpening choil the way it was. I just wanted to be able to put my finger there. And now I'm happy with it. But there's small mods sometimes that you can do on knives to make it yours, to make it better for you, or, whatever. These knives, a lot of people put thumb studs on these. They look awesome. Some people do flipper deletes, and then they put thumb studs on them. And I think they look great. So there's just lots of little things. You can buy thumb studs that you don't have to tap, meaning you don't have to drill into it. You can just put it on the spine. There's lots of aftermarket parts. There's lots of things you can do to knives to make it yours and to make it better for you. But the good place to start off with RIT dyeing, drilling, sharpening, changing in any way are Ganzos, CJRBs, QSPs, Tucson's is if it's for titanium, like if it's for dyeing and stuff like that. Kaisers, depending on what you're going to do to it. So even Civivis are really good, because their fit and finish is done so good that you can pretty much guarantee you'll be able to get it back together after modding it. All right, guys, just remember that I do a live every Wednesday and Saturday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. If you ever want to join us, I love you guys. Peace.